Hey, this is Sky. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Go check out my website at skysworld.com. Let's talk a little bit about Babylon. It's been something I've been thinking about a little bit lately. It's a concept from the Bible. This Tower of Babel. Babylon was a city of filth, degeneracy, evil. It feels like that Western civilization definitely has those elements to it. When you listen to a lot of reggae music, Bob Marley, that kind of stuff, there's a common thread. Now, you got to remember these Rastafarians, they're all very religious. The Rastafarian religion is an offshoot of Christianity. Rastafarianism, as kind of defined by Haile Selassie, is Ethiopian Coptic Zionism. That's actually their religion. They have a book which is just an adaptation of the Bible called the Kebra Nagast. I have a copy of that. I have a copy of every religious book. You name one. I got it on my bookshelf right over there. I've read them all. They strongly believe in Babylon and identify with this story of being taken out of your homeland and put into an unknown place that feels very evil. And this is also from the story of the Bible. And what was it? The Hebrews were taken out of the Holy Land and put into Babylon and whatever. But a lot of us go through this. I feel like that I was kind of born in the Garden of Eden, so to speak. When I was born, and maybe some can relate, it felt like the world around me was kind of a utopia. I don't know if it was the era or if it was just the way my parents lived their life in the Pacific Northwest, up in the mountains, and that's where I started my journey. And I was a small town boy. My parents were hippies, farmer hippies, pot-growing radicals, anti-government, off the grid. No electricity, no running water, that kind of off the grid. We lived in a school bus, we traveled around. We usually found people's property to stay on for a few months at a time, and then we would move again. We lived in communes. We lived around a lot of people. There was always lots of adults. Any one of them was my parent, even though I knew who my mom and dad was. And there were lots of children my age, and any one of them was pretty much my brother or sister. We all acted that way. It was safe, and it all was fairly dreamy. That's how I was supposed to grow up. That was where things started, and that's what the world I thought was. When my parents broke up, my dad went nuts. My mom ended up in DC, and of course I went with her. And DC was the pit of hell. It's going through a drug epidemic, heroin epidemic, crime epidemic. There were serial killers all over the place, not just one, but stories. This is back in the 70s. There were serial killers in the 70s. That was the thing we worried about. The 80s came along and the yuppies took over. The hippies died out. All the hippies were hypocrites. Hypocrites. That's where the hippie came from, was hypocrites. And those motherfuckers all turned into yuppies. Bunch of money-grubbing fucking yuppies. And I was living in Babylon is what I felt like. I felt like a fish out of water. DC, the urban environment, it ruined me, turned me into a monster. By the time I was 17, 18, I was a crack-smoking, drug-dealing, gang member, complete psychopath, committing felonies, major felonies. Felonies that lead to hard time, committing those every day of the week, all the time, running with a crew. We were wilding out. And so was everybody else in the city. I had turned into a full-on Babylonian, completely lost my identity of whoever I was before, the before time, all that hippie days bullshit, I forgot all about it. When I got out to see my dad, age 17, he contacted me. He had just got out of prison. My dad bit a cop's thumb off. Bit it off. It's a whole other story. I got a video about that story. My dad got out of the joint for that and contacted me immediately, and I went out to see him. He was surprised. He thought I might still be that little hippie boy that just happened to grow up. The last time he saw me, that's what I was, but oh, I changed. Babylon changed me. But I left DC with my girlfriend in my van, in a Dodge Ram van, slant six engine, conversion van. It was an 80s model, cool fucking van. I had nice rims on it, had the whole inside styled out, carpeting, a bed. I think it was a love machine. Her fucking parents hated me. I'd pull up in front of her house with that van, and they'd just be like, oh no. And that's right, motherfucker, I'm coming for your daughter. And I took their daughter across country out to California with one reason only. And that was to get away from DC, to get away from Babylon, to get away from the violence, all the fucking hookers, the homeless, the crazy cops, the stormtroopers, the helicopters, the prisons, the politicians, the lies, the corporate machine that seemed to dominate the country. I just wanted to go back to where all the hippies were, and I went back to the area where I started from, and I found that Babylon was there too. As soon as I got out to California, I joined a gang, went to jail, went homeless. I realized right away, sitting in the gang unit, Santa Barbara County Jail, you can't run from Babylon. Babylon's everywhere, you can't run from it. But I don't know what you do about it. I had a friend of mine who, he travels a lot. He just got back from Dubai, and he travels all over the world. He told me, and we weren't talking about this, he just brought it up on his own. And he said, you want to know, I travel a lot, and when I look out the window of the airplane as I'm going over Europe, Africa, South America, all these countries I go to all the time for business. He's like, recently he went on a 17-day trip, traveled all kinds of countries. He's like, you know, I see Babylon falling everywhere I go. And I don't know. I mean, I just don't know. I guess I have a different view of what Babylon is. I see a good civilization that was once good, that over the last 50 years of my life, 52 years, has slowly deteriorated and atrophied and degenerated into Babylon. In my life, we've gone from being not really a bad place to live to being pretty tough. You know, and I have a good life. I can't complain. I live a very privileged life. I mean, I worked hard to get here. But I see it all around me, even in this small town. When I first moved to this small town, I left Los Angeles, downtown Los Angeles, once again, with the same mission, trying to leave Babylon to find the Garden of Eden, to get back to where I belonged. And I got here, and it seemed pretty cool. Central Florida, middle of nowhere. I'm just far enough away from Orlando to kind of be in a small town, but still close enough to where I can go to a big city in an hour. And even in this small town, it started off with about 60,000 people, now it has 250,000 people. You could buy a house in this town for $60,000 when I got here, now they're $360,000 for the same little shoebox house built in the 50s. When I first got here, they didn't have helicopters. No helicopters. When I lived in LA, they're flying the helicopters at the treetops, shining spotlights on you if you go out to check your fucking mailbox or smoke a cigarette on your front porch at night. They didn't have nothing like that here. I was like, man, I found it. I fucking beat the system. I won. I found it. Well, now they got helicopters. City of Daytona Beach has a goddamn helicopter, and they fly that fucking thing every 5 minutes over my house. I'm surprised it's not there right now. Fucking helicopter, man. You can't run from Babylon. I forget how the story ends. Didn't Babylon fall? Someone tell me how the story ends. It's all food for thought.